r/AskReddit. What was the big rumor in your high school did turn out to be true? Police had a undercover cop pretend to be a student. Caught a couple people, but then a video of her sucking dick in the school parking lot for the drugs came out. Turned out true. Girl with super conservative parents got pregnant and had an abortion. She denied it and said she just get stomach surgery. Her BF at the time admitted it though. There was a rumor that a school board member was grooming high school boys by giving them drugs in money. A friend pointed him out at a street market and he was walking with two young men who were wearing collars and leashes. That one of the students in our junior year, who reportedly had a serious drug habit, was snorting cocaine. Gym teacher found him in the boys' locker room bathroom snorting a line off the toilet seat. Kid spent his summer break in rehab. Came back to graduate a clean senior. Then started up the cocaine again. Haven't heard much about him since. Two separate teachers married students. Like the year after they graduated from HS. Also, school jock assaulted a girl and it was swept under the rug because he was too much of an asset to the team. Wish this was more rare than it probably is. Sigh. There was a rumor that an incoming freshman had gotten so drunk over the summer that he passed out on a golf course and golfers found him the next morning and thought he was dead. They called to report a dead body. I know the rumor is true because the kid was me. The hard-ass vice principal was a drug dealer. I met his sister and confirmed it to be true. He grew and sold magic mushrooms. I would have thought it was cool if he wasn't trying constantly to get kids arrested. That one of the music teachers was gay and liked them young. We thought 18 to 19 years old. Turns out he was a pedo. That an English teacher was using heroin. It's pretty sad actually. He was just a regular guy who destroyed his knee. So after surgery he got painkillers. Got hooked on them. And then eventually started using heroin. Nobody really believed it until he abruptly went on leave. He was gone for most of the school year, and when he eventually got sober and came back, he told his story to the students to try to show them how dangerous that stuff is. And confirmed everything to be true. I went to a school for troubled teens. The structure there was very different. We weren't allowed to smoke. Even if we were 18. Or even have relationships, like no dating. Period. It was a boarding school, so once you were far enough in the program they would let you visit home for a couple days. A bunch of wild shit came out after one particular home visit. One kid lost his virginity. Got snitched on. And then all of a sudden like 20 kids were pulled out of class and brought to the dining area. It turned out a bunch of kids had been dating, screwing, and smoking. And it all came out. They hair drug tested everyone, and in that group was the first of our school to be on out of school suspension, which created a fun new threat for everyone. It feels ridiculous typing this up now in my 30s because so fucking what? Some consenting teenagers fucked each other. But at the time it was mind-blowing. Thankfully that school has closed its doors since. There was a rumor that the theater kids would use the bathrooms in the theater to have sex. Turned out it was true when a teacher walked in on a couple going at it on the sink. They ended up locking up those bathrooms during the day and only opened them for performances. It sucked because those were a lot nicer and quieter than the other ones. Most of the football team actually did have syphilis. And they were spreading it like wildfire. I went to a Catholic school and I've never seen a stronger argument for providing free condoms to teenagers. None asterisk of these kids were poor. They could have gone and bought their own prophylactics anytime they wanted. But they just didn't bother. That I was gay. I had no clue at the time, but as it turns out, they were right. That the English teacher had been sleeping with students. I found out when I was a freshman in 2008. Fast forward 8 years later. The chemistry teacher got caught and decided to bring the English teacher down with him to get some heat off his back. A total of 3 teachers went to jail. That our principal mom was a Holocaust survivor. That I was hacking into the computer systems because of this, my only failing grade my senior year was ironically the computer courses. To be clear, I was failed. I did not fail. I got perfect scores on everything in that class. I was a student tech at my school, so I had admin access to everything. This is why she thought I was hacking. The teacher simply marked my grades as zeros for that class. I got a 0 in that class. So the day after school technically ended, I logged into the system under admin login and changed my grades back to what they were. I had all of the papers still showing I got perfect scores in case there was a fight. There never was. The school resource officer, basically a rent-a-cop with a real badge, was confiscating drugs only to resell them to other students. He would check most of the drugs into evidence but keep enough to sell. Figured this out when I got the same pressies from the officer's son as I got from a buddy who got busted a week before. That 2 guys in my class were actually stepbrothers, since one guy's mom had married the other guy's dad. Turned out to be true. I never understood why they thought they had to hide it. On a ski trip, the phys ed teacher allegedly porked the science teacher. Someone saw him go into her room in the middle of the night. They denied it, but years later they got married. AP English teacher would send nudes to students. Turned out to only be half true. We all got iPads to use for the school year. She took photos of herself apparently for her husband in one of the bathrooms. A student used her iPad for something as she didn't know quite how to use it yet. Found the picture and dropped it to himself and his buddies. One of their girlfriends found the pic on her BFS iPad and told her parents. The teacher got suspended for a couple months, which I am assuming was to wait for things to die down. A couple years later, one of my friends who I graduated with posted the pic on Insta as proof he still had it. Felt terrible for the teacher because once that shit is out there, it'll never go away completely. She works as a real estate agent now. There were rumors for years about some of the younger male teachers and female students. Some of the teachers ended up leaving, never to be spoken of again. Others stuck around, but nothing was ever substantiated. Then, while my class was on our senior trip, the music teacher got arrested. Then 2 more teachers the following year. Then several years went by and the school abruptly announced it was shutting down for financial reasons 2 weeks before the end of the school year. The week after it closed for good. Another teacher got arrested. So yeah, I'd say the rumors turned out to be true. My middle school was horrible. Literally full of kids who were drug addicts and sellers. And girls who did things that maybe kids that age shouldn't be. Terrible environment. Bad teachers and stuff. Anyways, because of these students, there were constantly bomb and shooting threats. Everyone always believed them. I never did. But I think the last day of my last year there was crazy. There was a rumor going around that a guy was going to come into the school and shoot it up at a specific time. We report it to the officer at lunch. I text my mom about it to pick me up. And they put the school on lockdown. It was a false alarm. Of course. Someone pulled the fire alarm at lunch too. The school handled it terribly too. Didn't even notify parents. I left in the middle of the lockdown to go home. The rumor was about me selling coke. It was true. I got arrested in front of the whole cafeteria. There was a rumor while I was in high school that someone I went to grade school with was dating one of our grade school teachers. I heard it while I was catching up with grade school friends as a sophomore in high school. Well, last year found out it was sort of true. Turns out that teacher was actually R**ping and doing worse things to my grade school teammate. And also turned out she wasn't the first one either. And our school covered it up. Catholic school. Also, since it took her years to come forward. We're now 33. Nothing can be done about it in our state. She managed to get a restraining order years before, and he had violated it multiple times but was only arrested once. I wasn't friends with her then, but I am now. And I am glad we finally put aside our differences to make a change. In working with Ohio State, we are working to change the Speak Up laws to include whenever a victim comes forward. Not just up till they're 30. Most victims have repressed memories of these things that take years to surface. We are making a change together. Making a positive out of the negative. She is now one of the strongest survivors I've ever met. In my high school there was a rumor during my last year that the school's librarian was a sex predator. The majority of our student body dismissed it. A few years after I graduated, he was brought up on charges and convicted of multiple counts of possession of child porn and luring minors. He was actually a pedo. Really surprised me. Had someone asked me before he was convicted, I would have went to bat for him. No one I hung out with ever picked up that kind of vibe. He was one of the more beloved teachers in the school. Still kind of freaks me out that a legitimate predator was in our midst and we all adored him. From my understanding, he never did anything to any student, and the extent of his activities were outside of the school. But still, freaky. That a new student was actually a police officer. He was, and the idiots were busted for selling drugs. There was a rumor that a kid was killed on a bus in our elementary. They said he got his head smashed in. It's false. It's based around me and a friend of mine when we got in a fight. I hit him hard with a water bottle and dented his head. Despite all the bleeding, the bus driver dropped off all the other kids first, then took him home. Which I guess explains why people thought he died. So there was a rumor going around that a teacher was a real creep and had been saying things to some female students that made them really uncomfortable. I had a class with this teacher and he always gave me uncomfortable vibes. A few girls had even claimed they had seen him looking at their chests, but no one could really prove anything. One day in the middle of class we get a knock at the door and 3 sheriff's deputies enter the room and tell everyone to remain calm and then inform our teacher they have a warrant for his arrest. For his arrest, they place him in handcuffs and take him out of the room. Apparently he had been making very sexual advances towards one of the girls in his class, and her father was a deputy for our sheriff's department. She had told him what happened and he had a warrant placed for his immediate arrest. Never saw the teacher again, but everyone saw his mugshot. The really fucked up part is whatever he said to her messed her up so much that she dropped out of school and was homeschooled until graduation. Poor girl. When I was a freshman, some seniors were counterfeiting money. This was around 2004-05. They made some pretty convincing bills and spent them around town, including the school cafeteria. That year I learned that the Secret Service has a counterfeit investigations department. That one of the underage band kids was dating the 20-plus-year-old instructor. They had sex and it got reported and there were police interviews and a whole bunch of shit, and honestly I think it's fucked how the band director hired him. Apparently she hired some other person where the same thing happened at a different school. But she's still a band director. IDK, the guy is a registered sex offender now though. When I was in junior high, there was a rumor that there was a swimming pool on the roof. The janitor ran a celebrity nudity site. www. Roger Celebs. Com. Didn't know if it is still there. Haven't looked since high school. Lutheran high school. Chapel every morning. Religion classes. Etc. One of the senior girls. A minister's daughter. Rumored to be a prostitute. I always thought it was just a rumor. Found out years later it was true. While she attended a Lutheran high school, that the 10th grade English teacher had a thing for students. I remember when I was in his class he would make me stay behind after everyone had left just to talk. Freaked me out a bit, but otherwise harmless. Years later, my sister, who was now in his class, told me he was recently suspended for blackmailing a student of his into going to dinner with him if she wanted a better grade. Her parents found out and reported it to the principal. Turns out all these rumors about him being an absolute creep were all true. Last I heard he was fired, but he was old enough at that point, he was close enough to retirement. Our government teacher posed for Playboy in the 60s. This was around senior year 1995. Not true. It was the 70s. And my dad had the back issue in his collection. So when I was in high school, there was a power couple named Daniel and Sarah. Names changed in case someone sees. And Daniel graduated the year before Sarah. So Daniel's off in the Navy for training, and people respected Sarah because she was still committed to him. That is until a rumor of her sleeping with a few people on the football team while her boyfriend was away got spread around. She denied it for a while, and then her nudes that she sent to 3 football players got leaked, proving she wasn't faithful. She and Daniel still stayed together, had a kid, and Daniel hasn't seen his son for over 3 years because he doesn't care even after a paternity test proved he's dad. There was a rumor that our English teacher had gotten arrested for curb crawling. Nobody believed it until we had a textiles lesson where the teacher asked, "Any questions?" over how to do a particular type of stitch in the class. Clown asked, "Is it true, Mr. English teacher? Got arrested for curb crawling?" The textiles teacher answered, "I don't think everyone needs to know that, Simeon. That our science teacher was kind of a creep. I always thought he was nice." Years later, he was fired and arrested for aggravated child porn. There were always rumors of sexually inappropriate behavior by the priest who was the principal at my Catholic high school. Lo and behold, I later found his name listed in the Los Angeles Diocese Directory of Predator Priests. He had abused several women who came to him for relationship counseling. The big rumor wasn't about my high school but a school on the east side of town. The rumor was a bunch of girls were running a prostitution ring out of the school. It turns out it was true. PD went undercover and busted about a dozen girls that a teacher was sleeping with students. Turned out to be the APUS history teacher. He was caught and later fired. That a girl put peanut butter on her vagina and got her dog to clean it up. I overheard her talking to a guy in my class one day when everyone was gone. He randomly started to tease UER and say, "Peanut butter RR." Then she responded, "Oh my God, why is everyone talking about something I did in year 7? Quote, that the kind and popular teacher secretly making students get bullied. He's very popular. Young, good-looking, and very kind. Guys look up to him and girls have crushes on him. BC of this students will practically despise students that get special treatment. But turns out, that is his way to get rid of bad students. He intentionally showed his interest in that particular student. Such as saying in front of everyone that if they need help, he'll be there. Asking the students to have lunch with him. And so on. Being teenagers, the jealousy, especially girls, gets bad and the special students will always end up being bullied or cast away. One of the bullied students realized it, see the pattern, gather some proof, and exposed him to the school and posted online. It was pretty big. Edit, update. So I asked around. Turns out, they got a video record of him. Don't ask me how I DK. Saying bad things about students and saying that he intentionally made the targeted students bullied so they can drop out or at least move to another class. No one knows the reason though. He only wants the best students in his class. The new guy with a receding hairline that came to school in March and asked where he could buy weed on his first day of school. Well, he was an undercover cop and didn't last the week. Me being gay. Turns out I was bi myself. Dr. Palermo, the band teacher, never received his doctorate in music like he claimed. It was weird. He used to force all his students to address him as Doctor, but when he came back from his leave of absence we all called him by Mr., like nothing happened. Finally, I have a good one or two. First, high school PE teacher my senior year. She was super cool. Like fuck running the mile and getting graded on our times. Participation? Fuck that noise. Great senior year. 1 year later, she gets fired for showing up visibly drunk in her pajamas holding a teddy bear. She was fired during first period. This is after she taught several classes at around 3 p.m. Second and most scandalous. First PE teacher's replacement. Super Butch X softball pro yada yada yada. I know because my younger siblings. She's a hard ass but grows a soft spot for one girl in particular. This just so happens to be the youngest daughter of a super religious and connected family in the school district. Shit breaks loose. She gets fired. Girl graduates. They marry. Girls cheats on former teacher. More drama. This is still a sore subject in the area. Not nearly as exciting as some of the replies. But at my old high school I was always told that if you go to school after dark, in certain conditions you'd see a bunch of swastikas painted on the brick walls of the building. I thought it was fake BC, if they're really painted on there why can't you see them at all times? One night I stayed late for an art club meeting. We were studying photo exposure and playing with some light tubes to make cool pictures. So we were having the meeting outside in the dark. As we were messing around I approached the building from a certain angle and saw them. IDK if it was spray paint that got scrubbed off and left some kind of residue, chemical on the bricks. Or if someone sprayed them with clear coat or something. But there were very obviously swastikas on the wall. Yes. There was this one really pretty girl in the drama club. And the rumor was that she and the drama teacher were dating. I didn't really believe it because honestly, I just didn't see the signs of it, and while she did spend a lot of time with him, she was also the lead in every play. Which she earned. She was the best actress we had. No one questioned that she deserved her roles. I just figured she was working on stuff. It was just a dumb rumor as far as I was concerned. She graduated 1 year behind me. And a few weeks after that, they got married. So I guess it was true. That one of our teachers was in the IRA. He was. I was selling pot. I was. There was an 18-year-old freshman who was pregnant. And there was a joke spread that this was her 4th kid. They said she was first pregnant at 12 years old and that was why she never finished 9th grade. I actually made friends with her because we both walked the mile in PE. And I felt bad that people were spreading this rumor and making fun of someone who obviously is trying to better themselves for their baby. Well, turns out, it was actually her 5th kid. She had one set of twins at the age of 13. Then at 14 she was trying to be a mother of 2 and finish 9th grade. But she got pregnant again and dropped out. I realize now that the entire situation was very concerning. I hope she got some guidance. It was a few years after I graduated. But a student baked cookies for their entire history class and handed them out one day. Several days later, the student informed everyone that she had actually baked her recent grandfather's ashes into the cookies. And so everyone had eaten some of her dead grandpa. A lot of folks just thought it was a bizarre stunt until some of the cookies that hadn't been eaten were sent to the local PD for testing. And sure enough, contained human remains. I was in college and was seeing headlines about the school because it was briefly international news, I think, and had to text some of my friends that still had younger siblings at the school so I could find out what happened. Athletics coordinator was fudging documents on kids' addresses so they would be able to go to our school instead of others in the district. We won like 5 state championships that year. There were 3 in every 4 or 5 years. just long enough for the previous time to be forgotten. They repeated about different people and ruined their high school lives. 1. Some girl put a hot dog in her vagina and it broke off and she had to go to the ER to have it removed. 2. A guy was caught jerking off in the locker room. 3. That one guy who'd been a senior for, 5 years was sleeping with whomever the youngest or newest female teacher was. Also, the boys' PE teacher was perpetually accused of perving on the girls' PE class in every school I ever attended. We used to joke about our physics teacher dating this girl in year 10. A few years went by and another girl came into school insisting that she'd seen them in town together. But of course nobody believed her. Then he ran a school assembly, hooked his laptop up to the main projector, and his background picture was him, the girl and their child. Turns out he'd married her pretty much as soon as it was legal and had a baby with her. Nonce. We had a teacher who we all thought looked at the girls a little too much in high school. Back in the day when you bought airline cruise tickets, the local travel agency would deliver by hand to your house. We delivered to the teacher's house one Saturday morning, and when he answered the door, there was a girl from our high school on the couch looking like she was wearing her going out clothes from the night before. That the school was sending teen girls who got pregnant to the alternative school because they were afraid of an outbreak of teen pregnancies. Cliché as fuck for the 90s. But it was true. One of my friends got pregnant at 14 and they sent her off to the alt school. They told her it was the only way they could accommodate her special needs and expected absences. Otherwise she'd eventually flunk out. At my high school, 2 kids who were cousins were dating. They always denied it, but a lot of people still believed it. They did look weirdly similar, but a lot of people just chalked it up to coincidence. About a year later they broke up and totally stopped interacting. Rumors started that their parents got involved or found out and shut it down. And it was again left to speculation. At our 5-year reunion, somebody who knew their family said that it turned out the rumor about them being cousins wasn't true. They were half-siblings and didn't even know until their parents put it together one day. So kind of true? Texas. Early 2000s. The senior football players were raping the freshman football players with dildos in the showers as a hazing ritual. Going back decades. Was finally reported and a few did jail time. All male coaches, except one newish coach, in the school district were fired due to ongoing knowledge and implied permission. Football was banned for a year or two and the program had to rebuild from the ground up. In school I was in a big car crash in France with my parents and 2 other girls from my school. They were less injured than me so went back before me. Apparently there was a rumor I'd died. It wasn't true. Between junior and senior year, our janitor suddenly stopped working there. Rumors began to fly and a friend jokingly told me that he was suspended 6 months for slapping a hooker. Turns out it wasn't true. But it says a lot that most of us believed it. Turns out, all that happened was he hooked up with a student immediately after graduation and felt too ashamed to come back. Another interesting layer to the janitor. There was one storage room with a futon in it that we're pretty sure he lived on. He had keys to the building, knew the passcode for the alarms, etc. So it made sense that he'd sleep there after everyone left. He also had a blowtorch collection in one of the closets. My sister's form teacher got a student pregnant. I mean, he did end up leaving, but there's still multiple rumors of him being in prison. That one of the gym teachers was a lesbian. Greater than. She wasn't. The other 2 were and are still together 20 years later. Less than. That the textiles teacher was an ex-spy. I guess we'd be dead if we knew the answer to that. 9th grade. A teacher porked a male student. I remember some people had the videos. Screenshots. Showed me the text messages. The teachers denied it all, saying we shouldn't badmouth him. We didn't see him again. Fast forward 12th grade. One of my teachers was telling us to be good and not end up like that teacher. There was a rumor in my school that one of my classmates was a prostitute. Months later, some guy had a video on his phone of her sucking a dick for $50. That the theater teacher was banging one of the cheerleaders. The next year, helping the new teacher rearrange her office. I was her teacher's assistant. We found multiple pairs of panties behind the filing cabinet. That some kid had built a room in the ceiling above a closet to hang out and hide his stash of contraband snacks, sodas that he'd sell in the hallways. He literally cut a hole in the ceiling of a closet within a closet and snuck a mini fridge up there. Only got caught when he fucked up by plugging too many things in and caused power issues in the school. They had an inspector come in to find the issue and he was like, "Why's there an extension cord going up into the ceiling?" Kid got wind of it and managed to clear everything out. Had a rug, chair, lamp, and other stuff in addition to the mini fridge. By the end of the day, they still caught him a few days later. But it was impressive. The school was lying about the pool not being usable. The building was brand new, as was the high school. The pool had water but was drained because the VP lied about it having a hole that needed to be repaired. Turns out she was embezzling funds for a whole bunch of club activities we were supposed to have, including a cooking club, gardening club, and swim team. High school science teacher, with a high school-age daughter of his own, was sleeping with one of the girls in my class. True. His wife divorced him when I was a senior, and he married her shortly after she graduated. They're still married, and I recently got invited to their 40th wedding anniversary, a couple of years later. One of my college professors married one of my friends. They were married for about 20 years. Until he died. All I can say is it was a different time. It was creepy, but nobody thought to do anything about it. NSFWA's the story went. There was a senior girl who was selling $20 blowjobs to the football team. This was going on for some time with nobody the wiser. Then she got caught in the act by the girl's PE teacher. And when she told the girl that she was going to have to report it, the girl offered her sex in return for keeping quiet. So the two commenced on a daily lunchtime munch session. Then the two of them got caught by the boys' PE teacher. And to keep him quiet, both started doing him in a three-way physical education fuckfest. Eventually the three of them got caught by another teacher who turned them all in. The next day the two teachers and the girl were gone, never to be seen again. That's the story. At least what I factually know is true is two things. 1. With no warning, two teachers and one female student all left the school simultaneously. 2. Everything costs more these days. In 5th grade there was a rumor that me and another student were having sex. I was teased relentlessly, gained weight, stopped going to school, became depressed. It was true. All my teachers overheard the gossip. Not a single adult ever asked me about it. I told a friend, neighbor, who told her mother. The mother cornered me in the street in front of my house and told me I wasn't allowed to speak to her daughter ever again. She didn't tell my parents, who she saw pretty much daily. I was 10 years old. Two girls who I did theater with and seemed especially close had an inside joke with lots of people that nobody could tell whether they were dating or just friends who liked to mess with people by acting like they were. I kinda had a hunch. But I lost contact with both girls after they graduated. This was about 8 years ago. Well, just 3 days ago. I learned from a friend of a friend that they're engaged and getting married next April. Finally something I can shine out. Rumors this teacher was doing drugs. Mainly talked about coke. And was going off the deep end. Rumor started on a ski trip when we were on the bus and he forced all of us to watch Pee-wee's Big Adventure. IDKY. That's when it started, but everybody was saying he was wasted, high, and put that on to trip out. A week or two later, the news got around that he broke 2 windows with his fist. Apparently trying to kill a bee, he just had to punch so hard he broke both windows a week or so. After that, arrested for chain robberies over a weekend where he robbed a gas station about 45 minutes from our school with a hammer. He got caught because he robbed the same one back-to-back nights, and the next night they were more prepared. The mugshot was the icing on the cake. Beck used. The dude was clean cut and sharp every day at school. Not so much that night. Still a cool guy. In fact, maybe even cooler now. Mugshot. http station6underground.blogspot.com/2013/08/arrested-in-hammer-robbery.html m=1 axes 7wt02 fum. Extremely fundamentalist school. The principal was banging his secretary. Secretary's hubby worked at the school. Principal's wife and daughter were teachers at the school. His son was a student there. As the story went, she ended up wanting to break it off. He didn't. She insisted. And he still didn't want to. She told her husband. And then went back to her home country for a few months to get away. Then came back and he wanted to resume the affair. She told him to stop or she'd involve his family. He didn't stop. So lore has it that secretary and her hubby went to principal's house one evening and he had a dinner party. Everyone was tossed out and shit went down. Principal was ejected from the school for his moral failings. And ended up being a royal asshole in the school system elsewhere instead. Our library was called the IMC in our high school. This was the mid-90s and the computers had just got internet in said IMC. My best friend was at the school late for play practice or something. And was just messing around on the internet. Not doing anything crazy. He got caught being on the computers after hours and got detention or something for it. Somehow this translated to, he got caught whacking off in the IMC. This blew up. Everyone was talking about it, to the point adults on the street would approach him and ask, "Aren't you that kid that they caught whacking in the IMC?" He then started a counter rumor that he slept with one of the lunch ladies. When anyone would ask which one, he would reply, "The ugly one." That the black van in the parking lot was a big-time drug dealer and that's where the senior student who was dealing pot and coke got his supply. This was in white as fuck northeast US upper middle class suburbia. Turns out it was actually the local police collecting enough evidence on him to jump him in the parking lot after school. In front of everyone. With about 5 police cars too many for one 18-year-old kid. And arrest him. They waited until 2 days after he turned 18 to do this. Likely so there'd be no doubt about trying him as an adult. It was rumored for several years that the spoiled rich guy of my school was gay. Was known as a womanizer for years and was quite literally the school frick boy. Denied all allegations he was gay and so on until a photo of him and a guy in bed got leaked. His ego tanked overnight. Band teacher had a reputation for being kind of sticky with the hot girls in band. 3 weeks ago I was listening to the radio news like an 80-year-old. And found out he got charged for sexual interference with a minor. Edit. Finished high school 12 years ago. The girl he interfered with was a private piano student of his. Gym teacher banging a student, she was. Our school has a secret room, turned out to be true. Under the stage were a series of tunnels that were disused. At the end of the tunnels, stretching out for about half a mile, was a dark room with one chair and a table. Found this out myself after a dare. Locked myself in the school. That one of the gym teachers, very large lady, broke the diving board every year. I didn't have her class but from what I understood it was true except it only happened once. Edit. Holy crap, that's a lot of upvotes. Rip to that diving board. TBF. Someone said the boards are really hard to break. She might not have snapped the board but probably broke the supports or something along those lines. And we all know how kids are. I do remember the diving board being under repair a few times lol. This was in the late 90s. That a girl was raped one night by 5 guys that left her drunk alone in a field. Rural aerial. No charges were pressed at the time. Boy did everyone talked about it back then. And she had to change schools. I know it is all true because we ended up becoming good friends during our adult life. And guess what? She never ever recovered from it. Drug abuse, self-harm, etc. And she never recovered from her social anxiety due to being severely bullied after that. Either. Crazy, right? I am sincerely hoping the mentality in schools have changed toward victims of sexual assaults since. Hot. Male. Chemistry teacher hits on hot. Popular. Female student. Student reports it. Teacher gets fired. Nobody outside the investigation knew what actually happened until years later. But we had our suspicions. And we were right. Which was more like this hot. Popular bitch in the daddy's credit card clique hits on married. Hot teacher. Hot teacher shuts her down. Spoiled bitch reports he tried to kiss her. Gets him fired. Teacher finds another job teaching adults computer skills. Investigation finds spoiled bitch lied in retaliation because she got shot down. School asks him to come back. Teacher says nope. Can I use my mom since I don't have one? There was a rumor a girl was doing porn but there hadn't been proof yet. My mom went to high school with Tracy Lords. That our American government teacher fucked high schoolers. Went to prison last year at 65. My physics chemistry teacher was rumored to be a child-hating lunatic. I don't know if the guy just loved exploding shit or he wanted to hurt people. The water-metal reaction experiments that normal teachers did with small bits of metal, he did with chunks the size of a softball or bigger. He rolled them down a bit of gutter or got someone to try and throw it into a bucket of water which generally exploded. He also set up an experiment, incorrectly, to test us on lab safety. It was a toxic gas experiment in a damaged fume cupboard. That was a fun day of near death. He finally got sacked after nearly breaking a student's fingers while demonstrating how sound waves travel through wood by hitting a desk with a frying pan. He hit the desk so hard less than an inch away from their hands the fucking thing broke. Apparently. He swore he didn't intend to hurt them too badly in the hearing. That one of the students in my grade was having an affair with one of the math teachers. Fast forward 10 plus years. They are married with a child. A girl from my school posted a video of herself putting a banana to her vagina on social media cuz her crush promised to date her if she does so. Kids from my school are pretty quiet so I didn't believe it cuz I don't even know that girl, but I later heard from my friend that she watched the video and said it was both sad and disgusting. I later found out that the boy still rejected her and she transferred to another school but her younger brother didn't. That our star football player sad multiple girls in our school. He moved schools right after the allegations. Edit. SA means sexual assault. A PE head teacher was sleeping with students above the legal age of consent. He got demoted, but still has his job. The softball coach in his 40s was dating one of his players. It turned out to be a sophomore. So she was 15/16 at the time. He left his wife and kids for her. But she soon realized he was a creep and ended things. His punishment was a 1-year suspension from coaching. But kept his teaching job somehow. In my primary school asterisk. I believe the American equivalent is elementary school? Asterisk. Among the older boys asterisk. 10 or 11-year-olds. Asterisk. There was the rumor that you could sext with one of the female teachers. And even get nudes if you were lucky. I'd paid little attention to it, as she'd always seemed like one of the nicer teachers. The nudes part was as far as I'm aware, was false. The sexting part was entirely true. And looking at some of those messages, it's still shocking to try and put that together with the nice teacher I thought I knew. She was found out a few years ago, and is no longer allowed to work with children. We had a physics teacher. Looked South American, but was named the most Dutch name there was. He was an interesting man. Army background. He would wear civilian clothes. But you can't get the marching step out of a man. There were some other tells. Whenever a science project would cause a bang, he would be warned beforehand. I didn't understand why then. But now I think it must have been PTSD related. Then one day he just vanished. Gone. According to school he was taking a leave. But I had his personal cell. I was going through some shit and he helped me. So I called him. It told me the number wasn't in use. A couple of years later I was at my barber. We went to the same school. And he showed me a Facebook page of a man who just was him. Not similar. But him. I know it for sure. But his name wasn't Dutch. It was Colombian or something like that. I know he used Reddit. He got me into this. If you read this. Thanks for your belt and boots. I still wear them. And I got them resold last month. TL. Doctor. We had a physics teacher who probably was in WITSEC. Not a rumor so much as a running joke. We joked that a friend of ours was our group's jughead because he never chased girls. One day I saw Chasing Amy and thought, ha, jughead gay, wouldn't it be funny if that guy? Yup, my friend was gay. Was physics teacher. He also coached girls track. Was banging the homecoming queen in my class. I dated a girl that lived across from his house. The day she turned 18 I saw her station wagon pull out of his garage. Beloved cousins who were a part of the popular group in school were rumored to have been sleeping together. Very few believed it. Couple years after graduation they announced on Facebook that they had a kid together. That the school Leo liked to do drugs he confiscated. Years later he was front page news for being busted doing coke off of a student's stomach. Biology teacher was having an affair with the principal. It was before I was there, but there was a rumor of a popular teacher sleeping with one of his students after she had turned 18 but before she had graduated. Almost positive it was true because they got married within 3 to 4 months of her graduation. They had twins. Got divorced. And he was a bitter but still popular teacher when I came through a few years later. Never got fired because they were never able to prove the relationship started while she was still a student. There were also rumors that our OG high school built before WW2 had a large bomb shelter and tunnels that went about a mile to some of the buildings in town. But the building got a pretty extensive remodel after our new high school was built and I was never able to confirm existence of the shelter or tunnels. Wouldn't surprise me if the shelter was real, but the tunnels into town seemed a bit far. That our history teacher, who was married, was banging an English teacher. They are now happily married with children. That the 60-year-old art teacher was giving private nude drawing art lessons to a few select students. Basically she was posing nude for drawing classes and making sweet love to her favorite introverted art students every year. This went on for a decade that I know of. When she was 63 she married a 21-year-old former student. Music theater teacher was a pedo. We all made stupid teenager jokes about how the teacher was creepy or gay. 25 years ago. Turns out we were right to be suspicious. He groomed at least 2 boys to do his sexual bidding after school. One of the kids managed to get pictures and go to the authorities. They found tons of child porn. I hope he is still locked up. Went to a military boarding school. We would joke about how creepy the middle school assistant dean was and how he was probably a pedophile. Lo and behold, he had several charges pressed against him from several men he allegedly molested when they were kids at different boarding schools. He taught at that the English teacher fucked with ex-students. I figured out it was true after we fucked when I was in college. That there was an orgy several weekends involving a dozen students and at least a dozen adults. Age of consent way back then was 16. A bunch of the cool kids spent a lot of the summer at the lake cabin somebody's parents owned. The lake house next door was owned by a couple who would host swinging weekends there. At some point the two groups started hanging out together because high school kids love free alcohol, and eventually the students started staying for the orgies. That rumor blew up my entire senior year, and the longer it went the more it got to be obvious. Something had happened. Then it was obvious what had happened. This was back in the late 1980s with the AIDS scare and anti-gay paranoia. The whole story came out in a drunken argument by two of the girls involved. The reason it had been kept secret for so long was that everyone involved had hooked up with the same sex at some point. Texas public school before the reform. Schools were financed and run by the tax revenue of the neighborhood. You can imagine how that worked out. Rumor was they were dumping teachers that were going to be fired from a higher income schools into our lower income school. Turned out not only were they but some of the teachers were being fired for things like giving drugs to students, sleeping with students, and being drunk during class. The guy who taught chemistry was a notorious pedo, and they were just like, give him to the poor kids, they don't matter. The biggest rumor in my high school was that one of the science teachers' baseball coach was banging the health teacher, volleyball coach. He was at every volleyball game. She came to most of the baseball games. People would say they saw his truck at her apartment complex. Somebody said they saw them together at a concert 200 miles from home. Both of them constantly got asked if they were messing around on their boyfriend, girlfriend with each other, and both denied it for the entire year. Yeah. Turned out they'd been dating for 3 years like adults can do, and just kept it a secret from students because high school students suck. They got married the summer after I graduated. That the gym teacher was a male stripper named Texas Tight Cheeks before he became a teacher. It sounds too specific to be made up. Which is why I think it spread so easily throughout the school. I had a few from my time in HS. 1996 to 2000. A kid got busted for selling coke. Turns out it was a baggie with crushed up chalk dust in it. He knew it wasn't the real thing. Just trying to scam underclassmen. I still think he got expelled for it. An Ag Sciences and FFA teacher was suspected to be having affairs with students for many years. Apparently after I graduated one got pregnant and he was caught. His wife allegedly found out when everyone else did. And then she admitted to helping him embezzle money from the school for a number of years. She worked in the office. There was an English teacher and track coach that was known to invite a graduating senior into her classroom every year after the last track meet alone. No clue if that was true or not. But she definitely gave off those vibes. Also, had a different English teacher, was a wonderful teacher. Actually made me give a crap about the subject. She was fired because someone found out she was gay. I caught up with her years later and she admitted as much. But she went on to have a great career outside of education. Eric Greitens went to my high school. His classmates thought he was a piece of shit and horrible cheater. The adults were snowed. Turns out he was a poss. A group of male teachers were trading sex for grades. Students were 14 to 18. And since the principal was married to the chief of police, all reports were brushed under the rug until a special needs student got pregnant. That one of the English teachers used to physically assault kids. No one believed it because he was elderly and very kind. One day he told our class that back in the 80s when he was teaching, any time a kid got mouthy or started a fight in his classroom, he would pick them up physically and throw them out of his class. He gave a kid a concussion once because he bounced his head off a locker. They sent him to anger management classes, but he stayed teaching at the school until his retirement. In 12th grade, a rumor went around that the teacher I had for government, who also coached girls basketball, was sexually harassing and abusing the students on her team. One day, we came to class to find a substitute teacher. The original teacher had been arrested the evening before. I never heard any updates on the case, which doesn't surprise me. The school basically tried to erase anything to do with that teacher, along with what she'd done, from campus. Subscribe for more content.